I loved the original Burnout Paradise. I first played it back in 2010 on my old laptop that ran Windows Vista yet only had a single gigabyte of memory. The performance was awful, but I enjoyed it nevertheless. Since then, Burnout Paradise went on to become one of my favourite racing games ever. So when I heard back in 2018 that EA was going to release a remaster, I was really excited. And so in that year, we got Burnout Paradise Remastered. Now, don't get me wrong, Criterion Games and Stellar Entertainment did a fantastic job with Burnout Paradise Remastered. It had everything you could expect from a remaster. It had the original multiplayer, it ran at a higher resolution, it came bundled with all the DLC. It really was just a solid remaster of a solid game. But it could have been more. Now, why do I feel this way? What Burnout Paradise Remastered has over, say, a modern racing game release is that Burnout Paradise is already a fully complete game with few remaining bugs. Stellar Entertainment and Criterion Games did not need to worry about creating new content either. And I don't think they needed to worry too much about using up too many of the current gen consoles' resources, because, well, they were porting a 10-year-old game. And since this is Burnout Paradise we're talking about, the devs knew they were dealing with a game that had no distinct platform-based gameplay advantages. What I mean by this is, say, take a first-person shooter for example. Generally, PC players in these games have an advantage over console players due to being able to aim with a mouse. This kind of advantage doesn't really apply when you're talking about arcade racing games, as most players would be using controllers anyway. You probably know where I'm going with this right now. The reason I feel that Burnout Paradise Remastered was a missed opportunity was that it seems to me at least that it would have been the perfect testbed for cross-platform play for future EA titles. If back in 2018 it was decided that crossplay would be tested in BPR, it would have laid the foundation for future crossplay implementation for future EA games. I do want to stress, I'm not a game developer. I'm not an expert when it comes to stuff like this. I'm just a dude with a microphone, but the way I see it, Burnout Paradise Remastered was being built off of a fully complete game, meaning that if during testing there was a major issue with crossplay, say there was a lot of lag, the devs would know that it wasn't the game's fault because the game was complete. The regular multiplayer worked great, and even if crossplay was tested in BPR and it was deemed a failure, all the backend tech that allowed for crossplay could still be reused for future games, so that the basic implementation of crossplay would take a lot less time. If this actually happened, we could have seen crossplay be present in Need for Speed Heat, the latest FIFA, Madden and NHL. And since this is Burnout Paradise and if crossplay wasn't received very well, it would not have heavily taken away from the overall reception of the game, as the rest of it would still have made for a fine remaster like it is now. And if it was successful, great. We would have a high quality arcade racing game featuring crossplay on the market. The multiplayer lobbies would be more active and overall the whole game would have been better received, as Burnout Paradise Remastered would have been more than just a remaster. The critic and fan response would have been on a whole other level entirely, potentially even reigniting interest in the Burnout series as a whole within EA. It would have made the game a true definitive replacement for the original game, rather than it just being a pretty looking port with all the DLC contained within it. This has been 77. Thank you very much for watching.